It's interesting because you talk about some of these newer technologies or recent technology advances and adoption perhaps of some of those technologies. And as much as I'd like to ask you more specific questions about how Astellas is using, AI perhaps and machine learning in its skunkworks operations, I don't want to put you on the spot and make you answer anything or make you feel like you need to answer anything that's proprietary. But in general, like in terms of some of these process development tools, inline monitoring, high throughput screening, bringing them into an existing facility versus sort of spinning them up in a new, like a completely new development or production environment. Two different things there. So I'm curious, like, given your experience, if you were king of the Astellas process development and manufacturing budget, and you could spin up a new facility right now, what would you consider prerequisite technology to building that facility? Like, what does Josh Zibit want in his spot?
Yeah, so luckily we found ourselves in a similar position. Not too long ago.
That wasn't fictitious. That wasn't fictitious. What I just threw out there.
Well, yeah, I not responsible for the whole budget, and I don't have manufacturing as part of my remit, but yeah, worked really closely with the manufacturing leadership, and we actually recently built a state-of-the-art facility in Sanford, North Carolina, that came online not too long ago. So we essentially lived this experience of wanting, to build out a state-of-the-art facility and think about how do we make this work the best. I think you have normal considerations of wanting to make sure that you build a flexible facility, primarily because you don't, totally know what processes are going to land there, unless it's being purpose built for a single product. And it's important to think about the data that'll be generated. And so, a lot of thinking went into network infrastructure, to making sure that you have a LIMS system in place, so an electronic, laboratory information system. Thinking about, the amount of data that'll be generated there, so that you have a data historian. And then, the normal, hey, make sure you have state-of-the-art equipment that can connect to these systems. And then, the thing that's important from my perspective, because my team's responsible for the process development and the analytical development and transferring those into manufacturing, is finding ways that we can have systems and processes that allow us to mine the data that's generated in production, as well as what's being generated in the developmental labs. Because we really are talking about, large sets of data, and that's taking place, in two different sites. So our process development takes place in South San Francisco, as well as in Tsukuba, Japan. And so being able to compile the data across the sites, look at trends, multivariate analysis, correlations, things like that is really important. And so, you need to start from, what data are we generating, and how do we make sure to make it available?
Yeah. Can you share some on some of the systems that you're using to ensure that the integrity of that data, both in terms of application specificity and geographic and sort of, global specificity? Like, I'll dumb it down as simple as possible, right? Like, if you get a burger at McDonald's, where you live, you get one where I live, it's the same burger, right? Like, how do you make sure that you're talking about the same, you're grinding the same burger from Japan to San Francisco?
Yeah, I mean, there we try and operate on standard processes. So where possible, use the same equipment. That's not always possible. And so when it's not, then, look at the differences and try and understand, do they influence the data that's being generated? Actually a big area that requires investment is actually having data scientists. And so this is one where, you actually do need to put resources into people who are thinking about this on a full-time basis. Because otherwise you don't have the same ability to leverage the information that you would
Hmm.
otherwise.
Yeah. Do you those data scientists? Do you run the? I guess are they the same data scientists working in PD and manufacturing, or do you have separate teams in each?
Yeah, I guess we have separate teams in each place with people having different sense of responsibilities. Um, so it's really sites need to manage things the way they want to manage things, right? But
Mm.
just important that you have people who have that within their remit of how to leverage the data to the best extent possible.
Yeah, yeah. I want to stay on the data for a minute before and then we'll talk a little bit about the data infrastructure. But in terms of the data itself in your analysis of, let's talk process development for a minute. What
Hmm.
I mean, can you share with us what specific kind of analytical activity is taking place in process development? Any specifics there?
Yeah, I mean, for us, we'll run large experiment sets. Kind of the workhorse data that we want to get back is looking at titer. So that would be, for our products, you're looking at capsid titer as well as genomic titer. So that's, how many of the viruses are you producing, and what's packaged inside of them. So that tends to be a pretty big workhorse for us, because you're looking to improve productivity overall. Can you increase how much you're producing, as well as make sure that it's packaging the product that you intend to package. Looking at the downstream side, then we're pretty interested in percent full. So for those familiar with the AAV gene therapy space, that you have product that has full genome as well as partials or empties, and you really want to be optimizing so that you have as your product as full as possible. So
Yeah.
those tend to be, there's lots of other data points that you generate, but those are the important ones that drive a lot of the decision making.
Yep. Okay. Um, yeah, and we're going to get into some questions around the potentially efficiency gains. You mentioned increased productivity. As much as I'd love to, I'd love to have a conversation around like before and after. Like, what have you seen? Where are we now? Where are we going in terms of efficiency and productivity? Before we go there, though, the data infrastructure that is required to enable these technologies. You talked about, the new build, some of the technologies that are in that new build. What's sort of the backbone, the network and data backbone?
Yeah, I think it's important to have good backup. So we make sure that our data is cloud enabled. So you have on-premise access, you have cloud access. You have, obviously you need to remain compliant. So making sure that your raw data can't be modified. And so it's looking, essentially go down to the equipment that's generating the data, and then make sure from there that it's getting into a robust infrastructure and cloud solution to store it for the long term. And then once you have your raw data in a secure location, then it's putting tools on top of it to be able to analyze it. So there, we use a number of statistical tools that then we use to mine the data.